Hello, and welcome to The Storied Human. I'm Lynn Thompson. My guest today is Michael McAdams. Michael McAdams has felt a sense of destiny and purpose his entire life. A lifelong sincere seeker of truth, Michael has endeavored to reach out with an open mind to all sources available. Brought up in the Pentecostal church, Michael's uncle was a fiery Pentecostal preacher by the name of John W. Sullivan. Although Michael has always felt more spiritual than religious, communication from the highest possible source has been his goal as he enables his mind to receive information and direction that allows him to help the greatest number of people. When the student is ready, a teacher will appear has been a very appropriate life philosophy for Michael, as his path has consistently brought him together with individuals, books, and sources of learning that have allowed continued growth and spiritual enlightenment. One of Michael's preferred books, in addition to the Bible, is the Urantia book. Michael offers a set of his own writings called Spiritual Parchment Prints, available on his website, spiritspeaks.com. I can't wait to talk to Michael. I know he's got a lot of really great insights to share with us today. Welcome, Michael.
Well, hi, Lynn. Thank you for having me on.
Great to have you. So, where does the story start? Does it start with your mom? I was reading about your mom.
It does, and like I said, I was brought up with a foundation of faith, church-based, Bible-based, and Pentecostal was the religion that my mother was brought up with. And for those who may not be aware, Pentecostal is evangelical Christian, pretty strict, liberal interpretation of the Bible. And I would, brought up in Sunday school and church. My mother's mother, my grandmother, was extremely religious, and she had pastored a small Pentecostal church just north of Cincinnati in Ohio. And then, like you said, my uncle was a fiery Pentecostal pastor, and he had founded churches in Florida, Kentucky, and Ohio.
Wow.
So that foundation of faith, I believe for anyone who is interested in spiritual material, a foundation of faith is an advantage because we know the story. We have that foundation of faith, but we think, well, there has to be more. There just has to be. And the nice thing about having a foundation of faith is that you can build on that foundation. And there should not be anything that you can't investigate or look into or read that you will be uncomfortable with, as long as it doesn't challenge your faith.
Makes so much sense. I was raised in the Lutheran church, and it really was a great base for me. It's much better than having nothing, I think.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And, people with a foundation of faith, they're already comfortable with reaching out to the spiritual realm because they do it in prayer. And normally it's done in thought. And that is how these spirit teachers, which are angels viewed from a different perspective, that we're able to communicate with our own spirit teachers that are assigned to us. And there are stories and accounts of how organized religion, that the interest in attendance in church services is kind of on the decline. And a lot of young people are not being drawn to the church, although that's also kind of receiving a renaissance. But I read a post recently and it said, I don't want to just believe, I want to know. And I think that is the mindset of a lot of people today. We know the story, we have the foundation of faith, but we've been told to have faith and just believe for 2,000 years. And people are now at a point where they say, I don't want to just believe, I want to know. And this information that I share on my website, spiritspeaks.com, and in the book, An Angel Told Me So, which is the first of 3 volumes of a collection of messages and teachings dictated directly from spirit teachers from the other side, dictated word for word through my mother, Wilma Jean Jones, over a period of 22 years. And these messages and teachings seem applicable to everyone who reads them.
Isn't that wonderful? That's the test, I think.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And these spirit teachers in these messages repeatedly refer to themselves in first person. We feel, we believe, we advise. Our view encompasses more than your view can comprehend. One line in a message said, we hear the Spirit cries above the words you speak. Who talks like that?
Wow. I
I
love that.
don't talk like that.
Yeah. So you were raised with your mom having this ability? Did that affect you? Did she always do that?
She did not. Like I said, my mother was extremely religious, a daily
Hmm.
reader of her Bible. I was the one that had gotten into spiritual material and information before she was really even ready to start
Oh,
accepting it. And I had been led, like my website says, it says when the student is ready, a teacher will appear.
yeah.
And I would be led with my questions and my desire to know. I would be led to a book, a movie, a speaker, an event that would allow me to take that next step on my path. And I had gotten involved with a psychic group in Cincinnati, and I was able to do readings, psychic readings, and I did what's called psychometry, which is the ability to hold rings, watches, keys, anything that carries a person's vibration.
Hmm.
And I had a legal tablet, and people would sit down at my table. I wouldn't pump them for information, engage them in conversation. I would just ask their first name, and then they would give me something to hold. And I would just relax my mind and I would start to get a message for them and I would write it out, sometimes page and a half. When it got to the end, it would just stop. And I would read that message to these people, and many times they would cry. And it was more confirmation as to what they were going through rather than actual prophecy. And I didn't think that I was doing anything special. It was just something that came into my mind. And I believe that we're all given that ability, that innate ability to communicate with spirit teachers. And in these readings, it was their spirit teachers that were presenting this information to me.
Oh, so you were the channel for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the conduit
Yeah.
rather than channeling. And some people ask, they say, well, in these messages and teachings that your mother received, they said, how did this come about? And I tell people, I said, this was not channeling, if you
Okay.
know what channeling is, and this was
I
not
do.
automatic writing. So when Wilma Jean was led to sit down in these dedicated sessions, she had set up an electric typewriter in her kitchen. And she would be led in her mind, we have a message for you. And she would put a sheet of paper in the typewriter, drop down 5 lines, indent 5 spaces, just like you were going to do a letter.
Hmm.
And she would see 3 or 4 words just float into her mind and hang there. They would not go away until she typed them. Once she typed those 3 or 4 words, they would just fade away and 3 or 4 more would show up. That's how she got these messages.
Wow.
Full page, single space typed, many times with no paragraphs.
That's amazing to me.
And she
But
was taking dictation.
I'm very intrigued that I think when you first said to me that when you found you could hold someone's, something that belongs to them, or you got their first name, and then you were receiving information, I think a lot of us assume that you're just getting it from somewhere, but you very specifically said you were getting it from their spirit guide, so they're not able to hear. I think that's so wonderful that you were an intermediary for them. Like they're not able to hear for some reason, they're not able to connect with their own spirit guides, but you could. Now, when did you, I mean, were you afraid of this at any point? Like, how did you explain this to yourself when you first started doing it?
It just came naturally. It was a natural ability. And I've never, ever been afraid or uncomfortable with anything that I've received.
I
And
trust it.
anyone who's
Yeah.
interested in going to a psychic or a spirit medium, any information they receive, any psychic that you go to, if they're worth their salt, they will tell you that this is not me. This
Right.
information is not coming from me. This is coming from your spirit teachers, your angels, again, if that's your
Yeah.
perspective. Now, Wilma had received in thought a number of times before. We were all spoken to in thought. I'd slow down up ahead if I were you. I wouldn't buy that car if I were you.
Wow.
Uh, and if we listen and pay attention. But one of the times that Wilma was spoken to in thought, she was working around the kitchen one day, and she wasn't sure. She had been receiving these messages for quite a while. I was the one that had suggested that this material is so deep and so profound and so woven with a universal thread that we needed to put these messages and teachings in a book. But she wasn't sure. She had been praying about it. And working around the kitchen one day, these words started to come into her mind. She knew it was incoming. She picked up pen and paper. She had beautiful handwriting. And she wrote this message down, again, that she felt was confirmation that she should put these messages and teachings in a book. May I share this message with you and your audience?
I would love to hear it.
Emptiness is part of fulfillment. Let your resources fill the void left so that distinction of your purpose can be found. Expression is always self-explanatory. Therefore, look inside and anchor all your beliefs beside those still waters that will take away your troubled view and renew your strength to recapture that which was lost, but is now found to be adequate to pursue the course set before you. And as you reconcile your being to represent those qualities that have been left intact, God will see to it that although circumstances have been trying, to say the least, your weariness will disappear as clouds once removed allow the sun to shine to dispel the gloom and darkness that has pervaded your countenance. And as once described before, a token of this presence will be deposited to your account and books recorded in his name.
That's beautiful and lovely. And she knew then.
She felt that was confirmation. She'd been praying about it.
So did you help her make the book?
Well, actually, I wasn't able to publish the book until my mother passed away. But I designed the cover and the interior. And the book itself is this collection of messages and teachings. There's enough material going to be 3 volumes.
That's
And
amazing.
but these messages and teachings, it's like they're woven with a universal thread. And everyone who has read these messages have said, well, this sounds like what I'm dealing with. This sounds like they're talking to me. And I tell people, when you get the book, an angel told me so. But how do you know this to be true? An angel told me so. When you get the book, read each message once as it was given for my mother and given for me. Then read that same message again as if it's being presented for you and see what hits. It's amazing what hits.
I think that's so amazing indeed. Like I've had this discussion with people that write poetry, and they say the more specific they get in their poem, the more individual and specific they get, the more universal its appeal. It's kind of crazy. It's like they receive, I think in some ways poets receive messages and they don't realize it.
Well, and we all do. Again, we're
Yeah.
all spoken to. I mean, look at the musicians that will sit down and start to get words to a song in their mind, and they'll write this beautiful song, and it'll just come as fast as they can write, and they'll receive it in 15, 20 minutes.
And
And
they've
they've got
often
this hit
said
song,
they
that
yeah,
just
and
takes
yeah,
over. And they're that's the way it works. That's the way it receives. Now,
they often
people
say
many
some of
times,
them
especially,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry. Some of them say, like, I feel like this came through me. I didn't really, it wasn't me. And
It was given.
I've had that experience to some degree. I do write poetry. I always have. And how it starts is I get an image in my head or I get the first 2 lines. And it doesn't feel like I thought it up. It feels like it comes to me, like it's a gift. So I understand on some level what you're saying. It's like really amazing how that happens to people.
And we all have that ability. It's an innate ability that we're given to be able to communicate with the spiritual realm. Now, many people, especially people with a foundation of faith, they think, or they'll say, "Oh, I don't want to mess with spirits. I don't want to try and receive anything from spirits." And these are not spirits. These are spirit teachers, which are the same thing as angels.
That's different, right?
And people say, "Well, how do you protect your mind? How do you stop any negativity or anything that should not be coming into your mind from advising you or corrupting your thought process?" And I tell people the best thing that you can do, if you have the foundation of faith, feel free to say a prayer.
Oh, good.
and or an affirmation. And this affirmation came to me years ago, so long ago, I don't remember. And it said, let no thoughts, ideas, or information be made known to my mind that does not come from God or his direct representatives. And let that be your filter. Let that be your aura
Yeah,
of protection. And if any negativity does slip through as an incoming thought, then feel free to reject it. We have the free will to accept or reject any advice, guidance, direction, or support that we're given. And you could just reject that thought and send it out into the solar system.
I like that. Yeah, we have to realize that true spirit guides would never give us negative information or fearful information.
That's true. And if
Yeah,
you
and
have
so
that filter, that aura of
yeah,
protection, then there isn't any negative influence that can permeate that.
that's so great. So, what is your life like now? I mean, I know you're busy with the books and you have the website. Do you do readings for people?
No, I used to, but I've asked people have asked me, will you do a reading for me? And I don't really do that anymore.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm, excuse me, concentrating on the book and the podcast interviews that I've done, and I'm doing quite a few. Uh, One of the uh, aspects to my website, spiritspeaks.com, and it says for all sincere seekers of truth. And then it does say when the student is ready, a teacher will appear. Now, on the website at the top, there are tabs, bio for me, bio for my mother. And there's a tab for a television interview that my mother gave in Cincinnati. Posted on her interview, and it's a good interview, you can watch that. Posted on her interview is a message from volume 2 of the book. And this was the only time in a session where she was led to sit down and receive. Two different spirit teachers moved in the same session, gave two different messages, and signed two different names. And it was obvious that the second teacher was a different teacher than the first because the whole cadence and phrasing of the message is different. So I posted that first teacher's message on her television interview. It was just a little more than a long paragraph. May I share this message with you and your audience?
Please do.
And this will give you an idea of how they speak. And they speak differently than we do. And they also, again, reference themselves in first person. There is a resurrection period through which man must travel in order to come into the realm of things godlike. You are to consume and digest all that is given here, as this comes from one highly qualified to meet the needs of this generation. You are not the sole property of yourselves. God still holds the everlasting command over your being, and in him must one take refuge. You are to be considered as one who has been stripped of all belongings and left to die by the wayside. In this manner, are you then open to any help that would be forthcoming? You are by your very nature ones who would depend on your own intellect to carry you through. However, by giving of your soul into the hands of God, do you prosper and develop more freely into that which denies the outcome of some situations, knowing full well that it is the hand of God leading and directing you so that you may arise victorious in the end. There is never a time when you will be without the Father, nor his ever-loving approaches to see that you follow the path that directs you homeward. Take note that we say homeward, as your heavenly Father so resides in that vast insurmountable environment of time and space, so shall ye abide in joint communication with him by the grace with which he covers you and by your ability to accept this grace and use it for your own development. There are others here who wish to make themselves known to you, so I will step aside for this time. My love and devotion follows you as you trod onward, but ever faithful to your goal. And that message was signed, Your Loving Guide. Now, that next to the last line makes me sit up and take notice. And he says there are others here who wish to
Yeah.
make themselves known to you. My question is, who are the others and where is here? What do you mean there are others here? Where are you in relation to us on this physical plane?
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, they are in the spiritual realm.
They're in
And
another
that
dimension.
spiritual
Yeah.
realm exists adjacent to this physical plane. And we're separated by a frequency, a
Right.
veil, a vibration. We
Yeah.
don't know what the medium is that separates the physical plane from the spiritual realm. Now, to people with a foundation of faith, that spiritual realm would be heaven. But I believe the spiritual realm is so much more than just a place called heaven.
Yeah. I've read that before that we all have spirit guides, and some of us may have more than one. So that's sort of how I read how I heard what you said.
Well, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. And there's a book, you talked about it in the introduction. There's an interesting book. It's really advanced material called the Urantia book.
Yeah.
Urantia is their name for the earth. So it's really the earth book. And
Oh,
I have a link to that in my Great Links page on my website, spiritspeaks.com. And in the Urantia book, it talks about personalized thought adjusters, which would be like a spirit teacher. And it says that the age of our first moral decision, when we make a decision that shows that we know right from wrong, and it's normally about the age of 4 to 4.5 years old, that we are then assigned a personalized thought adjuster that will
oh,
stay with us for life and help us make decisions, advise, guide, direct, support. But because we have that pesky little gift called free will, we can
yeah.
accept or reject any advice, guidance, direction that we're given.
That has
And a
to be
lot
how
of
it is.
people,
Yeah.
as they go about their day and they're given information, they may think it's their imagination, their conscience. They just blow it off.
Yeah.
And well, that doesn't mean anything. I can't believe that would be true. And I knew a lady, I was talking to a lady one time in Florida, and I-95 is the main interstate north and south
Hmm.
along the East Coast. And she was going to an appointment, and she had planned on getting on the interstate and just going to her appointment. That was the shortest way. And she was driving to her appointment, and she heard a voice in the back seat that said, "Don't get on the interstate." And she turned around. There wasn't anybody there.
Oh my
Now, that's
gosh.
unusual. I've never heard that before, but I thought that was interesting. And she got up, she drove, wasn't sure. She got to the light uh, right before you would get on the entrance ramp to the freeway. And she had gotten into that right-hand lane because it looked like traffic was moving and she didn't see a problem. And she sat there for a few seconds and got rear-ended really hard by a girl who was on her cell phone and drove right into the back of her car.
Oh my gosh.
Did a lot of damage. And if she had accepted that advice, she wouldn't have been in that lane getting ready to get on the interstate. She would have taken another route. That's the way it works.
Yeah. And I do see that people might ignore some of these messages because we're taught to be, you know, not to use our imagination too much, to be logical and, to be sensible and practical. And so if you have that mindset, you're not going to entertain that these thoughts might be real. You would
Well, and
definitely
the Bible
shrug
says
them off.
test. The Bible says test the spirit, and
Exactly.
these spirit teachers they don't mind taking the quiz.
Yeah.
They're happy to prove themselves. And
Yeah.
the spirit teachers, our own personal spirit teachers, their joy is in our recognition of their existence. And if we can open that line of communication and then test the spirit, try it on simple things. And if it works out, it builds your confidence and their line of communication with us.
I mean, I'm one of those people that is pretty intuitive, and I do trust when I get nudged, when I have a thought and I get nudged a certain way. I'm ready to trust that because I'm kind of connected. I trust it, and it has never done me wrong. When I get these little nudges or whispers, they're usually correct. Like a lot of times, it's call somebody, call somebody right now. That's what works the most for me was um, somebody needs me to talk to them. Somebody needs me to help them. That happens a lot in my life. I just sort of am used to it now, but that is a beautiful thing.
And you want to strengthen that connection as much as possible,
I would like to.
constantly.
Yeah. That's why I'm so fascinated by all this and what you do.
Now, when that first teacher moved aside, he said, there are others here. That teacher, that spirit guide moved aside, and another teacher moved in, gave a page and a half long message. And I won't read the whole message, but the last paragraph, these spirit teachers in these messages, they repeatedly offer a deep and profound last paragraph or a really deep last sentence. May I share this paragraph with you? This was the second teacher that moved in.
Mhm.
You are not as sheep herded here and there, but you are likened unto the lamb that is cared for individually, nourished and loved until the full and total development allows it to be master of itself. So is man so kept and denied only those things that would not in the long run nourish his spirit. God is all wise and loving in his dispensations. We are not to judge the workings of our Father, nor are we to judge each other. Work always to improve your own beings, for in the end time there lies your soul, with all the nourishment that you have given it, totally dependent upon the outcome of your intentions. And that message was signed, your loving spiritual teacher. So it
That's
really was two different spirit teachers that moved in, one giving the name your loving guide, the other giving the name your loving spiritual teacher.
that's intense. Now, I know some people claim to be in connection with angels and angels that have names. Did that happen for your mother or for you?
In the 22 years that these messages were dictated from spirit teachers, they gave a number of different names. She
Hmm.
had received messages for her that were signed your spiritual counterpart. I have received messages to me that were signed your spirit brothers, your spirit light. And when she would sit down in these dedicated sessions, she would receive a message addressed to her from her spirit teachers. And then she would receive a message addressed to me from my spirit teachers in every single session. Now, as these messages and teachings continued over the years, it's like the spirit teachers started spreading the word on the other side. And they said, look what we found. We have this willing receptacle in Wilma Jean Jones. And the messages became deeper, more profound, and longer. And many of them were not necessarily addressed to Wilma or myself, but they would discuss us or advise us in the body of the message itself. So that's the way these messages and teachings were received.
I just love that once they see that there's somebody who can pick up on their messages, more of them come. And I also know that spirit guides exist to teach us and guide us. So how wonderful that they could get through to you and your mom.
And they've been assigned to us. I said, these aren't just, spiritual teachers that are floating around looking to do something good. These
Yeah.
teachers have been assigned to us, and each of us have our own spirit teachers assigned to us for the duration of this existence. And I tell people, I said, there is no death. We never really die. It's
Right.
just graduation. We
Yeah.
ride around in these bodies the way we ride around in our cars. These bodies are just a vehicle to negotiate this physical plane.
It's important to remember that we're spirits having a human experience.
Well, I was doing an interview with a lady here just recently, and she brought up the movie Avatar, which we've all seen so many times because they run it constantly on TV. And the the prospect of being able to take your consciousness and put it into another body and then live in that body in a society or a civilization is intriguing, and I believe real close to what's happening to us as we were we were a spiritual being in the spiritual realm, and we have been assigned to a certain set of parents in a certain social station, I believe, for what
Yeah.
it is we're supposed to learn in this lifetime.
Yes. I believe that too, that you have this whole setup and you're supposed to learn given your parents and your situation and your personality and your life trajectory, but you still have free will. So
That's true.
you make of it what you will, but if it is sort of set up for you to learn certain lessons, you I've read that you plan that with your spirit guides before you're born.
I've heard that it's a
Yeah,
collaboration, but look at the children born to Bill Gates and Steven Spielberg. They'll want for nothing.
yeah,
Granted, they'll have their challenges, but that kind of wealth and connection makes all the difference in the world. And then you've got children born to poverty, to destructive circumstances,
yeah,
alcoholic fathers, drug addicted mothers. You could be born in communist China, North Korea, Iran,
yeah.
Russia. You don't know where, you're going to be assigned. But I believe that, whatever it is we're supposed to learn in this lifetime. And I recommend for you and your listeners, I don't know if you know these, I recommend 3 movies that will open portals in people's minds. And I believe these are unique movies that will allow people to have that perspective of what might be. And may I share these with your audience?
Sure.
The first one is called Defending Your Life. That has Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep in it.
I've seen that one. It's great.
Yeah, it really is good. The second one is called Always, and that has Richard Dreyfuss and Holly Hunter in it.
I haven't seen that one.
That's really good too. The third one is called The Last Mimsy, Mimzy.
I've seen that one. It's amazing.
Yeah. And all 3 of those just give you a perspective on existence. And that's what we're here for. I mean, if you don't have that perspective, then you're anticipating something that's probably not going to happen when you cross over. Now,
Very
when
true.
I said my mother had received in thought in these dictated messages, my grandmother, who was pastored this small Pentecostal church, my grandmother had received in thought sermons dictated to her mind in thought that she would write down and preach in church. And she would even receive verses to Psalms that she would put to music. And in the book, An Angel Told Me So, in the photo gallery, there are 6 verses to a song that my grandmother received lying in a hospital in Columbus, Ohio. She had been taken by ambulance from Dayton to Columbus. She had diabetes. They didn't think she was going to make it. And she was in a room by herself. She was praying, and these words started to come into her mind. And she had pencil and paper on a nightstand beside her bed, and she wrote these words down. And those 6 verses are in the photo gallery of the book, and those 6 verses will almost bring you to tears.
It's
Now, I've had a
amazing.
number of posts, they'll say, well, your mother received, your grandmother received. They said, do you receive? And I said, yes. I said, I've been spoken to on just a regular basis, and it's something that you establish that connection, and it will never go away. And when I was first looking for a publisher, I was on a number of different publisher websites. One of the websites asked questions about your work. One of the questions was, what makes your material unique? Why would anyone want to read this? Great question. And I was sitting where I'm sitting right now at my computer. I didn't really even ask for an answer. I just relaxed my mind. And an answer started to be dictated to my mind. It was 12 lines long. And I just typed it down. When it got to the end, it stopped. May I share this answer with you and your audience?
I'd love
So
to
the
hear it.
question was, what makes your material unique? And this is the answer that I was given. The uniqueness of any material is in the manner in which it touches the soul. An open and searching mind pulls the soul and the body in which it inhabits onward and upward with hunger and determination in its quest for spiritual nourishment, ever mindful that the path upon which we walk is the path toward God. Lives lived, experiences endured, goals accomplished, and loved ones lost are all encounters upon that path. Strive always for the highest possible communication with our Heavenly Father. Believe in yourself, as the Father within you is guiding, leading, directing, and comforting you upon this journey that we call life. Blessings be upon you as you walk your chosen pathway.
That's lovely. I love that.
Well, that was not me. I just said, thank you, Spirit.
Yeah,
And
That's a great.
that was one of Wilma's favorite expressions when she would be given information, told that something was going to happen, and it worked out exactly the way they said. She would always acknowledge and say, "Thank you, Spirit." And again, that strengthens the connection between us and our spirit teachers to know that we appreciate their help and they appreciate, again, our recognition of their existence.
Yeah, gratitude is really important, and acknowledgement.
It is. It really is.
So I'm curious if you ever receive messages from departed loved ones.
I have not. I have not, but there are mediums, spirit mediums that do. Not only just messages, but true contact. And are you familiar with Lilydale, New York? Did you ever hear of Lilydale?
Yes, it's full of mediums, right? It's a town of mediums.
It is the world's oldest and largest community of spirit mediums and readers. It's been around since 1877. Lilydale is 60 miles south of Buffalo, New York, Western New York. Buffalo's Niagara Falls. And I have done presentations at Lilydale for my book, and they have my book at the bookstore. I've done book signings there. And there is an outstanding documentary that HBO did that's been 10, 12 years ago on Lilydale. And you can watch that documentary for free on YouTube. So I don't know if you want to write this down or I can give this to you again when we're off the air, but I will share it with you again, but I'll share this with you and your audience. And if you go to YouTube, in the search box, type in "No One Dies in Lilydale." And when the choices come up, choose the one posted by KL Audio. That one is free. I think some of the others are $1.99.
Okay.
And I know all the mediums in that documentary. Gerda starts out at the beginning. She's really good. Jonathan White, he was really a nice guy. He passed away early last spring. Gregory Kahn, I'm not real impressed with Gregory. He's got a real sing-song voice, but he's interesting. And then you'll see Sherry Lee Calkins. And Sherry's the one that I stay with when I go up and do book signings. She rents rooms upstairs in her home. And the sister community to Lilydale is Cassadaga in Florida. Do you know that
Yeah,
community?
I have heard about that. Yeah.
I've done presentations there, and they have my book at the hotel gift shop and the main bookstore. I've done book signings there. And Cassadaga was settled from a group of mediums who broke away, from Lilydale in the early 1900s. And it's an interesting community. Now, Lilydale is a gated community. Cassadaga, you can just drive right in. And as I said, when you drive in this little curvy, windy country road that leads up to it, it's in Lake Helens, Florida. And you drive right up, and the hotel and the bookshop are right there when you drive in. And then there's the streets that you can drive down, and each of the mediums or psychics have, homes there. They're all residents of the community, just like Lilydale. Mm-hmm. And then, you can decide if this is something that you want to do, that you want to reach out and touch somebody who's passed away, or if you just want a reading. And in that Lilydale documentary, like I said, Gerda starts out at the beginning, and she's doing a reading for a lady who could not be any more skeptical. And this lady is not buying this for a second. You can just see it in her face. And Gerda relaxes her mind, closes her eyes, and she tunes in, and she says, "I hit a pole, I hit a tree, who was it?" And this lady's mouth drops open. And she just meekly says, "My daughter." And Gerda proceeds to get a message from her daughter who got killed in this car accident.
Oh my gosh.
And she's telling her mother, she says, "I'm fine." She said, "I'm not hurting." She wants her to stop grieving, stop crying. And if you look at this lady's face, her lines in her forehead droop down, her eyes droop down, her mouth droops down. This lady has cried every tear out of her body. And she is not ready to stop grieving. And I mean, to have that kind of connection.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's just an amazing documentary. And I won't give anything away, but at the very end, I've had a lot of people say that the reading that is done at the end with this black police officer from Chicago, whose son got killed on a city bus by a gangbanger who got on the bus and opened fire because he thought a rival gang member was on the bus, that information will bring you to tears.
It's amazing how people make those connections. I've been to a few mediums. I have one I really like that's in Pennsylvania. And it's I was skeptical in the beginning, but it's undeniable the things that these people know and the peace that they bring you,
Well, it's
the
not what they know,
connection.
it's what they're being given. Again,
Exactly.
they're connecting with the spirit teachers of those who've passed on. Or just if you're getting a reading, you're getting information from your own spirit teachers. And again, they will advise you, that this is not me. And for you and your listeners, like I said, if they watch those three movies, and if they are interested in that documentary on Lilydale, then they'll gain that perspective that this is real,
Yeah.
that this is really happening. And I wonder sometimes all of, you had the Salem witch trials and all of
Yeah.
these people that were being spoken to that were claimed, well, those are just evil spirits that they're hearing. We don't know that these weren't their own spirit teachers. And
Right.
that, and even the Bible talks about, beware of soothsayers and that sort of thing. And it's almost like we've been conditioned and trained to tune out any information, guidance, direction, or support that is so readily available and so close. One of the lines in a message that Wilma received, it said that we exist as close as your heartbeat.
Wow.
And that is how close they are to us.
Mhm.
And if you establish that filter of protection, that aura of protection, you need have no fear that any spirit teacher will come in and present any information to you that's not beneficial to your welfare and your being.
I like how calm you are and how reasonable it sounds because to you it's normal. And that's important to understand that it's just a normal part of being alive. And we've been, like you said, trained to be fearful of all. There's no need to be.
No, there is not. Again, you have the ability to establish your own filter of protection. Now, on my website, spiritspeaks.com, if you scroll down to the middle of the homepage, you'll see a painting that I have at home. And there's 5 hidden messages in that painting. So you can take a journey through the painting, find the hidden messages. First quote is from the Bible. The next 3 are from the Urantia book. And the last quote, the last message that you'll find is the message that my mother received and thought that she felt was confirmation she should put these messages and teachings in a book.
Mhm. I'm curious how you found the Urantia book.
Actually, the lady that ran the psychic group called Psychic World in Cincinnati, she gave me that book as a gift.
Oh,
And she said, "Here, you're ready for this." And it's
that's
it's
how
it really is an amazing book. Um, it was transmitted through an individual in 1935, first published in 1955. It's been translated into 16 languages, over 4 million copies in print.
wow.
And it gets a little deep. It talks about the hierarchy of the mansion worlds and the various levels on the other side of this physical plane. But my favorite section is a 650-page section on the life and teachings of Jesus. And it sounds like they were standing beside him with a microphone for 33 years.
Oh my gosh.
The detail is amazing. And it agrees with the Bible about 98%. Little
Yeah,
twists on stories and stuff, but nothing to get upset over.
that's good.
And
Yeah.
it's just an amazing account uh, from how Joseph and Mary met, where and when and how Jesus was born, all of his young years, teenage years. There are no missing years.
Oh,
Why he chose to come to the earth and live the life that he lived, and various responsibilities and even restrictions that he put on himself to not just not go forth and do all these miracles on purpose, even though Jesus did do a number of miracles. That that he was not going to be here to overwhelm the populace, to just be
Hmm.
something that they couldn't comprehend. And this narrative, this 650-page narrative, is written by a commission of 12 called the Midweyer Commission. They identified themselves. So that's advanced material. Like I said, to get comfortable with this, I would highly recommend An Angel Told Me So, to allow people to realize that they have their own spirit teachers and that these messages and teachings that Wilma received are applicable to their daily life and what they're dealing with. And that's a start, along with the movies. And then you and I are really doing the same thing. We're shining a light on a path
Yeah.
for people who are walking their journey, and people will go off on a tangent. And then they'll look back, well, how did I get here? I should be over there. This is not where I want to be. And they've either gotten into information or relationships or circumstances that have drawn them away from their path and what they were meant to do in this existence.
Yeah.
And if we can continue to shine that light on the path through this material and through what you do, then if they are sincere seekers of truth, when the student is ready, a teacher will appear.
It's so true. You're reminding me of my own life when I would be in a bookstore and a book would almost fall off the shelf, like literally, like just I'd pick it up and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, this is exactly what I need to be reading." So things like that do happen. Things move into your life for a reason and help set you on a slightly different path. So that has
I,
happened to me.
I found a book on Edgar Cayce like that. Do you know who
Yeah.
Edgar Cayce is?
Oh yeah.
On my Great Links page, I also recommend what I believe is the definitive biography on Edgar Cayce. And it's just titled Edgar Cayce, an American Prophet, and it's by Sidney Kirkpatrick. Have you ever
Okay.
read that one?
No. I think
It's
I've read
really, really
excerpts from
good,
it. Yeah, I would love to.
extremely detailed.
I've got a good book
And
list from you here.
pardon?
I have a good book list from you.
Oh, yeah, start with mine. Like I said, I highly recommend mine. Well,
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to read, but these
Mhm.
paragraphs, some of these paragraphs are so deep, you'll read the same paragraph more than once. Did
Oh
that
yeah.
really say what I thought it said? And Wilma Jean, in these messages, she would repeatedly get full page messages with no paragraphs at all. And it made it difficult to read. Some of the sentences are 110 words long with punctuation. And
Yikes.
they're not run-on sentences. They're just that deep, that profound. So when I wrote the book, when I put the book together, and what I do is weave a narrative as to what was going on
Mhm.
in my Wilma's life and my life between each of these messages. And I broke the messages themselves down into paragraphs to make it so much easier to understand and read.
That sounds like a good idea. So, is there anything else that you would like to share that we haven't talked about?
I think we pretty well covered it. What I will share is the book An Angel Told Me So is available on my website, spiritspeaks.com. It's available through Barnes and Noble. It's in Barnes and Noble system. It's on Ingram is my national distributor. And any
Okay.
independent, any favorite bookstore that someone has all across the country, they all deal with Ingram. So Ingram can order the book. They can order the book through Ingram. And then it's also available on Amazon.
Very good. And your website again, spiritspeaks.com?
Spiritspeaks.com. Now, I also
Is
have a contact page on my website. And if anyone would like to contact me with any feedback, once they get the book or questions, I respond to everyone that contacts me.
that's fantastic. Well, I can't thank you enough. It's been so great and so informative.
Well, thanks, Lynn. Thank you for having me. And I'm glad we were able to share this with you and your audience.
I really appreciate it. And I hope people get as much out of it as I did.
Thank you.